Hi, and welcome back to another video for Your Soul Evolution. My name is Erin, and I help people to evolve spiritually and to awaken to new perspectives. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about depression, and this can also be applied for anxiety, for PTSD, for any kind of mental disorders, being overweight, any way that you can possibly label yourself, any belief that you have about yourself, this can still resonate with you. Depression is really something that I can relate to, as it is something that I have personally struggled with for as long as I can remember throughout my entire life. And sometimes I knew what the trigger was that caused it. Sometimes it would just come out of nowhere. Over time, I had just come to accept this as just a part of who I was, and that this was just my normal and natural. And we had some people in our family who had some struggles as well, so that added to it, that it could just be something that I was just born with, some kind of chemical imbalance or whatever you tell yourself to justify what's going on with you, and kind of make it more comfortable to deal with. But really, I began to see it as more of an excuse to not have to deal with what was going on inside of me. Sometimes we can use those things because we can just accept that easily, that it's just, something that's in our family history, and we can just use that as a band-aid to slap on that and say, well, that's the cause of it. It's something that's in my family history, so I just have to accept it as part of who I am. And that takes away the accountability that we have to deal with personally, what could be causing that. So at one particular low point in my life, I remember really just taking full acceptance that this was just really who I was. And I remember thinking and just really priming myself for the rest of my life to just accept that this is who I was, and this is just how my life was going to be. And I really accepted it fully as my truth. And as I did this, I think things even became worse. Once I accepted it as part of who I was and I quit questioning it, I think that sent me into an even lower point. And it wasn't until one day I remember thinking, but why? Why is this who I have to be? And why do I have to accept this as part of who I am? And just because so-and-so suffered from it, what does that have to do with me? Why does this have to be part of my life experience? Because I remember thinking, overall, I have a really great life. I have a home, I have a vehicle, I have running water, I have all these things to be grateful for. I have more in my life than I know a lot of people in other places do. So why do I have to struggle and suffer with this? Why does this have to be part of my life experience when everything else about my life is great? I'm really happy and content. Why do I have to have this part of my life that to me was very negative? And it was in that low point when I questioned myself on that I had this realization that it was only my truth because I had fully accepted it as part of who I was. And that as long as I continued to tell myself that story, that this is who I was and this is just the part of my life, then that was going to continue to be the case. And I had just this really strong realization that I could change this at any time if I truly wanted to. So this is what I mean. You can apply this if you're someone with anxiety or PTSD or whatever it is. As long as you continue to tell yourself that that's just part of who you are, and it's just something that you have to accept as part of your life experience, then that will continue to be there, and it's only going to grow. It won't be until you realize that you have the power and the ability to change your story whenever you get ready to do that, because we're all growing and evolving, and we all do that at our own rate. So what I began to do is, when I would feel those low points coming up. And if you've struggled with that, you know exactly what I'm talking about, how everything will be going fine, and then you'll just have this wave come over you of just, I don't even know how to describe it, of dread, just like a low energy, a low vibrational feeling. And so what I began to do was, as soon as I would feel that feeling kind of washing over me, I would immediately start to think, what is the most exciting thing that I could be doing right now in this moment? What could I do right now that would raise my vibration, raise my state of being? And it would be something as simple as, the most exciting thing I could do right now is go to take a hot shower, a personal favorite of mine. So I would go and take that super hot boiling shower, and then after I would get done, I would feel good and I'd be feeling better. And then a little bit later, that feeling would come back. And I would think, okay, well now what's the next thing that I could be doing that would raise my state of being a little more? So I would think, well, I could go for a short walk, or I could go grab a cold brew coffee, or whatever it was. It's going to vary for each person, but just what is the next exciting thing that you could be doing? And as soon as you start doing that, it's like you're going up a ladder. You just keep going up and up and up. You know, what's the most exciting thing I could be doing right now? Okay, I did that. Now what's the next exciting thing I could be doing? And you just start to create this little stepping stone until eventually you will prime yourself enough that it'll just come natural, and that starts to just naturally raise your vibrational set point. And that's really what your goal is for anything. We always want to be in our best possible state of being, because that is where good things happen to us. That is where more opportunities come in. That's where we get on these lucky streaks and have all the positive things coming to us. It's always about your state of being and what you're putting out into the universe. And the more you have a heightened state of being, the more good things that you're going to get a reflection of, because you're always getting a reflection of what you're putting out. So what's really important here is just to remember that you have the ability to change the story that you're telling yourself. Even if it is something that you feel like is genetic or hereditary or whatever, and you might want to do some research on that, because if you start digging around on Google, you can actually find that a lot of the stuff that we think is genetic and hereditary, really there's not a lot of scientific backing on that. So you might want to look into that before you start just accepting that as part of your truth and who you are and something that you just have to live with. Another important thing to remember is that time is not linear, that time as we perceive it does not exist. There is no past, because when it was the past, it was this moment right here, and there is no set future, because by the time that the future gets here, it will be this present moment right here. All we ever really have is this present moment. The past we just perceive of because our brain can perceive of memories and things like this, and our future is just imaginary. It's just things that we can focus on, and it'll take us on that path, but it's really not set in stone, and it changes based on our state of being. It's very important to always remember that. If you're someone who is struggling and suffering from things that happened in your past, give yourself permission to let that go, because that's just your memories. And we already know also through neuroscience that our memories are not even what we think they are. That every time we take a memory from our memory bank, we look it over, we add to it, we take some away, and then we put it back. So by the time we've looked at it 5 or 6 times, it's not even what it really actually was. And we also can interpret different things about that memory based on our state of being. If you're in a low vibrational state of being and you're reflecting on something that happened in your past, you're going to have that negative outlook on it because you're in a negative state of being. Whereas if you were in a more positive state of being and you looked at that same memory, it would somehow take a more positive spin, because we base it off our vibration and our state of being at that moment that we're looking at it. But the same thing goes for if you're thinking about a positive memory. If you're in a positive state of being, you're even going to remember more positive things about that memory. So just to recap a little bit, your story that you tell yourself can be changed at any time. You do not have to accept anything, because then you just give up and you're like, well, this is just who I am. This is just something I have to accept. And it won't be until you say, but why? Why do I have to accept this? I have all these things to be grateful for. Even something small that we are grateful for is a lot more than somebody else may have. You always have something to be grateful for. And it won't be until you realize that you don't have to accept that. It doesn't have to be who you are, and you can change that state of being at any time. And a lot of people suffer from this depression, anxiety, PTSD because it is serving them in some way. And this doesn't apply to all people, but some people are using it as an excuse so that they don't have to move on. They always have this thing they can go back to. Well, 20 years ago, this happened to me. And I'm not saying that it wasn't something traumatic and devastating, and you have reason to be upset about it. But I'm just saying, if you're wanting to move forward with your life, become your greatest version, and make the most of every day, you have to choose to let that go. As long as it's serving you, it's gonna want to stay there because it's comfortable for you. But if you truly want to live a better life, then you have to let it go. Just remember that if you start to feel that feeling coming over you, just immediately think, what's an exciting, and when I say exciting, I'm just using that as a metaphor, but what's the next thing I could be doing right now to raise my vibration? Even if it's something small, any little bit will help you. And then once you do that, think, what else could I be doing? Even if it's just a little step above. Do that, and then just keep going and keep going and keep going. And eventually, you'll be surprised once you let this go, how quickly your life can change. It is not a long process. It's like once you come to that realization that you want to move past it, the universe, your higher self, all of that comes into play to help you. And you'll be very surprised how quickly you can let it go, especially if it's something that was serving you and you realize that it's not serving you anymore and you just let it go. You'll be very surprised how quickly your state of being can be raised and raised and raised until you're at a place where it doesn't happen to you anymore. And then at one point in your life, you'll think, man, this is amazing. I feel amazing every single day. Can't believe that at some point in my life I was experiencing that. Healing is about letting go of what doesn't feel good, what isn't serving you anymore. Once you start the process of letting go of labels, things that you label yourself as, if you're labeling yourself as a depressed person, if you're labeling yourself as someone with anxiety, if you're labeling yourself as a person with mental disorder or PTSD or anything, that you're an overweight person, whatever it is, once you let go of those labels and realize that the power is within you to be whoever you want to be, and that all we have is this present moment right here. So live it to the fullest. I hope this video helps you. If you know someone who would benefit from it, please share it. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And until then, I'll see you on the next video.